going on? Welcome to Black Middle Class Talk. We're going to have a couple of subjects, and my name is CC and
And my name is E. Glenn.
Glenn, and we're going to see if we can stir up a little emotion, a little insight, and the way we communicate and the way we talk, and get some information out there. It's all about opinion, though, and this black middle class, we usually don't see ourselves, and me and EB are definitely black middle class if you base it on certain criterias. But my criteria and EB here is a little bit different. You're just gonna have to, as time goes on, we're gonna figure that out. We're gonna have, as you notice on the introduction, we had a lot of subjects on the subject board. Eventually, we're gonna, in talking in general, we hit these subjects. So just as we go on, people will get used to that, and we'll see how that goes. But the format of the show, the first part, we'll just talk about current events. The second part, we'll just talk about, we have discussions with people who call in if there be any interest. The third part of the show, we just continue on with the board subjects. In the last part, we're going to talk about the music, our generational wealth, and our talent, and all that's been stolen from us. So, but let's start the show off, EB, with a little current events. What you got for me on current events?
Well, there's a couple of things that we have go. By the way, welcome aboard. Like you say, my name is E. Glenn, and to have this opportunity, as CC was speaking about, to have this opportunity to speak about black middle class talk. It's everybody got a talk show or a podcast or whatever, but just like a different flavor. Like you say, it's a lot of market out there, and everybody have that market vibes and flavor. And hopefully ours is one of those laid back, old school, new school, because, we can have that conversation on all different platforms, if you will. Well, a couple of things that we want to bring up and talk about. One is what they consider is the LA riot, and I, at the beginning of it, it was a protest. They are protesting ICE coming into their neighborhoods and taking out what they consider illegal aliens, and that all that is being questioned, and how they're doing is that they want to go and snatch them up and put them right on the plane without due process, but that's a whole different type story. But, the question that I have is that if they considering this a riot, that's the one that's equivalent to the Rodney King riot, the O.J. Simpson riot, those was a whole lot of discourse and disagreement that was going on during that time. But, a lot of people take advantage of these opportunities. Is that, it started out as a protest, but I said that that's what it is. It's a protest. But then again, when all the protests go on, and then all the opportunists, they show up.
And I think before you go any further, a protest is generally peaceful, I think. It can turn into a riot at the drop of a dime. You can ask Martin Luther King that, and because if you think about it, when he went to Memphis, that was a peaceful protest. It started out, that was the way it was planned. Then they had some infiltrators come in, paid young black kids, bust some windows, and it turned into a violent situation, and it made Martin Luther King wanted to go back. They kind of wanted to discourage him, but he wanted to go back to Memphis. Now, I just bring that up as an example of, you can start out peaceful and have good intention, but you always got people who are going to come in, paid probably, black people, very well versed in this, who will turn it into a riot in the drop of a second. But I like your observation that you were saying that there's a difference between, protesting and riot.
Right.
So I just wanted to kind of emphasize that. It was a good point.
Right. And then, but the point that you also make is that you saying is that they're paid infiltrators. But then again, you also have to consider is that who's paying them? that it benefits the other side for it to be considered as a riot because it goes along with their agenda. You know, that's what they wanted, and that's why they can justify sending in the National Guard. You know, and that's a whole other story. You know, the president, you know, is deploying, you know, troops to Los Angeles because it's right, and they only going to cover a 1 mile square area. So right now, if my numbers are correct, allegedly there is like 7,500 military and civilian police enforcement to cover a 1 square mile area. You know, so it makes you wonder, and it also stated is that was more people, I mean more troops that was in Afghanistan or Iraq. So, you know, that really tells you something right there.
Let me just kind of quantify that and say, the way I understand it, the reason why they're in that square mile area is because of the federal buildings. That's where they get the legal, if they're following law. I don't even know what the law is no more. Whichever one that Trump, as he says, he's the federal government, whichever law he tends to like. I don't know why. Obviously, they're not following any law. Supreme Court has gave him authority to break the law, but at least he's trying to stay in the area of when you tell a lie that at least you can clean it up. When if Democrats win again, maybe they'll have a chance to clean it up and say, hey, we were in the area of a federal building. I had to send those troops in there to,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
those brown people were attacking that federal building. I just want to make that note, but continue on.
Right, but the other thing is that you know, having, you know, the conversation and kind of goes along with what, you know, we intend for this, you know, podcast to be, is that it's totally open. You know, it's nothing about, you know, yeah, we probably, and we're speaking our views based on what our beliefs are, but it doesn't make that we're, you know, pro one side, unpro the other, non-pro the other side. Is that we all hopefully about speaking truth, and if there's something that is being said, and that if we plan that we speak to it, yeah, you know, we take a chance, you know, when you speak your view, is that, you know, it tends to for people to label you, but I consider myself open-minded, you know, about any and every subject, you know, and you know, and CC would probably have the same view.
Yeah, definitely. And I like that word you brought up, truth. In fact, I think it's probably on that subject board when we do the intro. Truth is very important. And like you said, it doesn't matter who tells the truth, if you're black, white, or brown, as long as it's truthful and has fact behind it. Now, we can all have opinions, which this is what the show is going to have, hopefully bring out different people's opinions. But some people don't base their opinions on fact. They base it on how they feel. And those are two different things. But some people don't even, I should say, kind of identify fact versus opinion. I find that sometimes when I'm talking to people, they say things and they say them as if they're fact. And they're not, because fact is, there is a such thing as truth, which is based on fact. For instance, the air. I'm breathing oxygen, right? Is that a fact or is that my opinion? Now, that would be easily provable if you just removed oxygen from the room. You know what I mean? That makes it fact.
Right.
That, yeah, if not oxygen, you know. But am I breathing, let's say, toxic fumes in the air? Well, I can feel like I am, but that don't make it true. You know, so I'm just saying, we're just trying to make the distinction. I just want to jump on that word that you used, truth. It's very important that we all deal with truth, because it's so much confusion right now because of what they call, what is that term they use, fake news now?
Fake news.
Mm-hmm,
But, you know, and we would hope that, you know, because we're not all knowing, and, you know, we would hope, you know, having this venue or this platform is that you come out and tell us, you know, God, we don't mind being challenged. We don't mind being told something. If you got some, like he was just speaking about, truth and fact, if your truth and facts that you feel that you can add to this that will make it even more, that's at the end of the day, that's what we intend to do, is get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, out, because a lot of times that I speak, and if I do speak that way, I would let it know, and I would speak to it in my opinion. That's what I would say.
Cool. And that gives a good transition into the next subject of this first quarter of the hour. The Supreme Court and truth. You usually go to court when you're you have a dispute maybe, and one side says one thing, the other side says the other. The courts, I always thought, were designed to get to the truth, right? Am I wrong? And what this thing called justice. Now, that may be a little bit new to black people, to be honest. In the 400 years since we've been in America, we've had some ups and downs with the judicial system in the Supreme Court. Because the Supreme Court, to me, has just gone totally off the rails when we deal with truth. And now we got a problem when the top of the justice food chain seems to be confused about what truth is, because they have their own truth, they have their own agenda. Things get kind of muddied up. This term they say, politicians in robes, it rings true now. I mean, we see it right in front of us.
Right.
The Supreme Court, you look at the rulings that they're making. For instance, how is a felon able to become a president? They ruled that not only could he become president, he can continue his crime spree, and he won't even be punished. I mean, is that true? I mean, there's some perverted about that. When you, as the top judge or judges in the country, can come to these type conclusions when it's clearly written in the Constitution, and you make this what they call it, intellectual maneuver. Intellectual maneuver is kind of perverted, whatever you want to call it. That's where we are right now. And if if you see it for what it is, a lot of America's problems where we are right now are based on this current Supreme Court, which in my time frame, I go back to, I can go way back to Thurgood Marshall. I'm not that old, but when I was a young man, he was one of the Supreme Court, the first black Supreme Court justice. And Clarence Thomas replaced him, by the way. That's a subject with another day. We're going to get to that. So it's very important that we understand that the truth is taking a hit through the Supreme Court, and it comes on down and don't dump their, he just uses the authority that they gave him to be lawless. Really. Right. Now, they just gave it to him. I don't know about the headsets and all those other cabinet members. Your Bundys, do they have the Supreme Court didn't rule on them? But I noticed, I think they did put in this bill that they're trying to get through, the big, what they call that, ugly bill, the big ugly bill. They put it in there that I think they're trying to cover the people below him, because what everybody knows, if the Democrats win the House or the Senate next election, there's going to be some investigations, and rightfully so, because these people are breaking the law right out in front of you. Right. Trump has a right to. I mean, the Supreme Court, not a right to, but he has the authority to break the law. The Supreme Court ruled last year, and it is a tragedy. But what was your thoughts on the Supreme Court thing?
Well, I think about as a child, and coming up through an adult, the Supreme Court is not anything that stood out in my mind. I just knew that there was a Supreme Court, and they was making rulings, but they was doing it quietly. It was, every one now and again they'll come up with something that before the Supreme Court, but now, like they made the statement, like CC said, is that now we have politicians in robes, and and for it to be that blatantly shown, what their, political views and agendas of, and when they did, what I've always known about the Supreme Court is once you put that robe on, your only job is to interpret the law as is written in the Constitution. Now they have become, makers of the law. You know, for them to like this thing, all these new laws that are being questioned are being brought to the Supreme Court. But then again, now you know the presidency was used as a format to build a court that would benefit them. So that being said, is that now we have to, you know, and then that you know the time before we didn't have any problem with it, you know, Supreme Court for life. Now we need to question that because if you get a person in there, and now that person would be there for 30 years. Think about how much damage that could cause, and they would not be able to because it was built. It was built through McConnell and Trump. You know, because you remember he stopped Obama from putting his in there, and then he had Trump to put one in there, and he used the same rules that he said the reason why Obama, he said let the next president make that call, and he did the exact same thing. So, you know, it like say, just giving you some idea of how our views are, and you say, you know, and all of you out there probably have your own opinions about it. That's what we want. Bring it to us.
And I have my opinion on that because I want to mark something that you said, well, note something that you said about how we got the Supreme Court that we have. It was all, now you don't forget Leonard Lito, that's the backer, the billionaire, really. And Trump really was just how shall I say, a useful idiot, as they say, to get these things. And he still is. He's finally realizing that these judges are not his judges. You know, it was the backing of that name. I know you're not familiar with it, but that name is coming out a little bit more. And you talk about interpretation of the Constitution. That's what they're supposed to do, right? Now, the problem is they might not, in where we are now, they interpret it in their minds a different way because they have an agenda. Now, this is nothing new for black people. If you think about the Dred Scott case, which took, you know, that really set black people back, America back, I don't know, 100 years before we were able to overcome the Dred Scott case. That was the Supreme Court, and that's where, I can't remember the justice's name, where he said that the white man is not obliged to respect the rights of a black man or something like that. Well, you know the term, what did he say? And it'll come to me later to quote him. And that was the Supreme Court justice who said that. The black man has no rights that the white man is duly responsible to respect. Yeah, but I tore that up. I'm gonna go back and read that. But I'm just saying this is not the first time we have a corrupt Supreme Court, but they even made corruption legal. I mean, you can actually, how should I say, give the politician a gratuity after they do what you want them to do. It's not considered a bribe by the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court that we're talking about. And so I feel that, and I'm glad we put this down. They have a couple of cases before the Supreme Court right now, and one is on discrimination, but it's the disability discrimination. It should be easy for them. I mean, even that Supreme Court. So that's pretty much, unless you had something else on the Supreme Court, I don't know. You know, we can move on.
Well, like I say, yeah, we can move on. But like you say, like we're just giving you all these little nuggets of different things. So just giving you an idea of how, you know, having a different variety of subjects that we can, because, you know, I want to hear, you know, what's your view? You know, we got all these news agencies that's out here that's supposed to be giving us what we call the truth. But then again, all that's based on an agenda as well. You know, drama sells, and truth intertwined with drama sells even more. So that being said, is that yes, from my era, I remember the journalists, you know, Walter Cronkite, Dennis Rather, I just, go down these different lists of journalists that when they said something on the evening news, you knew that it was the truth. Or it was real close to the truth and it wasn't faded out based on nobody's agenda. But as time had went by, news agencies will have what call a bottom line. And what that bottom line is that you need advertisers. And advertisers is only going to be on stations that draws viewers. And drawing viewers cause you to do what? They fight as hard as they could, but then again, they have to get into the drama. And they have to sell the news. So that in itself is something that, I'm just telling you about how these are different things that me and CC intend to put forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that subject there, the media, and you were saying that they need drama to sell advertising, to get advertisers to come. Now, is this the argument that they make with Trump? Trump always gets the viewers up, and that's why they put him on all the channels. His face is rolling on every channel. Is that, or is it that the billionaires are in on the scheme? Because you're right, the media, you watch ABC, CBS, and NBC on the evening, they got the same thing on all three channels. How can that be? You're reporting the same thing. You may move the top story to the back or the back story to the front, but it's the same news on all three channels.
But the thing of it is that you only have so much news. So, but then again,
hold it. You say only so much news.
No,
clarify that.
What I'm saying is you only have so much news that sells like that. They have fillers that they put in, but like you said, MSNBC, you have for a 5-hour span, you have 5 different journalists get on there and tell the exact same story. Five different journalists. So,
right.
And when I was saying is that you only have so much news, you only have so much news that's going to draw people to you. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about, the Chamber of Commerce, giving out a plaque to Willie Joe because he made a big pumpkin. You think somebody going to turn on their TV and stay there and wait to see that? You got to give them something to draw, and you notice that they'll give it to you at the beginning, but you got to watch the whole newscast to get it.
Okay, is this a case of if it bleeds, it leads?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Is
I
that
don't know
what
if I
you?
ever heard that, but that's a good one.
Right, but okay, and this is a good segue for us to go into the Sean Combs. That's drama, right? Is that why Sean Combs is making evening news on all the channels and
Right.
and some of the cable channels because he sells advertising or
Right. That is the hottest thing, drama, without trying to insert some truth, that they have that's out there is Sean Combs. And so when they know that, and like you said, they already got it. They got a show on, if I'm mistaken, either Hulu or Netflix that actually used the transcripts from the trial and actually is doing a series. They having live actors play out them roles.
Real quick, because we got to take a break here in a few, and we're gonna come back to this subject because I want to know what your personal opinion is on that, and and another thing, if it should be a lead story, I guess it is because we just covered that. But so that's what I want to see what your personal opinion is
Well,
of
like
it.
I say, on the other side of the break, like I say, we'll dive into that.
Cool.
Come back and see us.
All right.